Eric,
Omar.
it happened.
It did.
Redemption. Welcome back, the 2023 IPF World Champion, Pana. Pana, this is insane right here. This is one of my favorite, let's say, story arcs. It's not the completion of the anime of the manga, but it is of one of the arcs within said manga. Because let me set this up real quick and tell me if this is accurate or not, my friend. You were previously a world champion, right? IPF world champion. Then the next year, something happened, some setbacks, injuries. You gave it your best. You tried. You showed up, tried to do the damn thing, despite having said back issues. You had to then requalify for Worlds. A bunch of other things happen. You're on your way. You compete now in 2023, and you reclaim your title. But in between, there was some sort of almost prophetic visitation of a certain individual, a mythical strength figure in the mountains of Greece, one Kyriakos Grizzly. You met this individual. So am I correct with this timeline, Pana? Please correct me, man, if I'm wrong. This is your story. World champion, struggle, right, which things happen. You decide to try and overcome it. And before you compete again, you make this visit to one Kyriakos. You have this legendary training session where you partake in his methodology. I'm not saying that influenced the outcome. I'm just trying to give an accurate representation, Pana, of the timeline. You do this thing. You're full send it. You have to live it. You understand it. You're there in his hallowed halls of training, and then you reclaim your title in a dramatic fashion. Did I represent your story? The basics correct? Am I incorrect? Talk to me, my man. Welcome back.
So you got it down. Like you said, basically, 2021, I won everything that's winnable in powerlifting in my weight class. So national champion, European champion, world champion. So you cannot win anything besides that, because back then there wasn't Sheffield. So I won everything possible in 2021. 2022, everything that I had won, I just lost it all. National title lost because of like clavicle injury. World title lost because of back injury, COVID. And then I bombed out of Euros for not complying with the rules of the IPF at Euros. So couldn't get a squat in. So I was disqualified, ended up last. But so far you got it right. And then obviously 2023, I was like, this is the moment for me to redeem myself, to reclaim what I've lost. And prior to going to Worlds, like in April, I went to Greece to see my dad. And while I was in Greece, I was talking with Kyriakos through the DMs, because I speak fluent in Greek. And at some point he was like, yeah, maybe we could do something, maybe not. And we ended up training together, and we trained for the difficult. He showed me how to be full. And thanks to those newly acquired skills, I was able to put up a show at Worlds 2023 and reclaim the world title.
You know, Omar, I can't help but think this is just a perfect example of the cinematic hero's journey, where you have the heroes at the peak, right? So if we're talking about the Rocky arc, it's not the first one where he proves himself, but is just short of the win. It's number 2. He wins, but now he falls from grace, and then he has to go to the mountain, right? And there is even the wax on, wax off moment. He says, hey, Grizzly, can we get a workout? And he says, maybe. It's not like absolutely Pana will do it. It's like, hey, you got to earn your stripes. You used to be a world champion, but now it's you're at the bottom. And listen, you don't just get to come in my gym where I do the things that he does. I can't even describe them, and train with me and learn how to be full and have me just scream on command. This is real. All right. This man is going to teach you the secrets, but only if you can humble yourself. And then he comes back. So it's I'm just in awe that you're living the cinematic life.
Yeah, it's like I was in Greece to see my dad because to make this story short. So my dad fell sick some years ago now, like 4 or 5 years ago. Got one cancer, then another one, then another one, then another one. And now it's like, hopefully this cycle will find an end, but at least for now, there is no end to this cycle, at least right now. And so he wasn't supposed to go to Greece, but he went there. And so he decided to stay there because he was feeling better, and he was people were taking more care of him, like doctors in hospitals. And so he decided to stay there. And so it was some months that I didn't see my dad, and I knew that I would have my training for Worlds and I wouldn't be able to travel and everything. So I decided in April to go there because we were still like 2 months out of Worlds, and I wanted to see him because I'm really close with my parents, with my dad. So I went there, and you know, at first when I met Grizzly, I was like, yeah, I'm meeting him for the meme, that's Grizzly, we'll just have fun. And to be honest with you, though, the night of, so after we trained together, after I sat and speak with him, I gained so much emotion and energy from it, because Grizzly isn't a character for YouTube or social media. He's really himself. And so when he screams, he doesn't scream for views on Insta. He screams because, so the way he explained that to me was, when I get that like rush of emotions, the only way I'm able to phrase those emotions is by screaming. And so we shot a couple of beats, like we trained, etc. And at the end, I asked him like, hey, could you do like the legendary with your hand on your head? And he goes, no, because we trained. I screamed a couple of times during this training because I wanted you to perform at given movements, because I think I benched 172.5 when I trained with him, and he actually screamed on that rep. And then he told me, that's done. So I screamed whenever I had to scream. And now I don't feel like putting up a show for a camera. And, we stayed like until the night together. We had a dinner together. And I didn't put my camera out because I was like, that's not a moment like for the cameras. That's just a moment we have to live and to experience together. And so I did a review of that day after everything was done. And I said at that moment, so I didn't put out the video because I just couldn't, because I had a lot of stuff going on with my dad. And at the end, for the outro of the video, I actually said everything about my dad. I was like, my dad is sick, that's why I'm in Greece, etc., etc. And that video never came out, and it probably never will, because it was like 3 months ago. But what I said in the outro was, like, having seen my dad and now meeting with Grizzly, it just gives you perspective on things. And Grizzly actually talked to me about for the difficult, what it means. And it's not a meme for him, it's like real. So now he understands the meme, he plays along, etc. Yeah, but like from the beginning, it's like, it's real. We live for the difficult, he trains for the difficult. And I was like, I have my dad in my life. He's still alive, although sick and fighting. And now I just trained with the legend himself, Grizzly. Man, there's no way somebody beats me at Worlds. There's no way somebody beats me at Worlds. And just prior I left, my dad actually asked me to promise him that I would win Worlds. So I was like, okay, that's full circle, no coming back. And now I had like 2 of the most intense months of training in my life. And then I was ready to battle it out at Worlds 2023 in Malta.
Pana, Eric, I cannot believe this, what you just did, Pana, because you already went there. You really are that guy. You're one of my favorite lifters to watch. We were going to get to that. We're going to dive right into that because it was extremely powerful, to the point. 2 things just to talk about, because actually, Eric, I know you know this, that shout out to Dr. Patroclos actually has connections with Kyriakos, with Grizzly. And I do want to state for the record that people, like, there are memes and a bunch of other things, but he is a full body 3D character, like a person, sorry, not a character. And that it's actually beautiful, his pursuit where he does the damn thing. And that's why the whole point, Pana, where you say you have to live it. There's a video I implore everyone to check out where he does a curl. He actually has, what is it, Pana? He has, I believe, like a bicep tear. He has a few, he's in his 40s, late 40s. He's torn. So this is why he does modified movements. But when we say he's about the life, I want to put some respect on his name real quick. Look up a video of him doing a curl. I believe he's curling 315 pounds. And there's 2 arm wrestlers, Denis Plinkov and then Levon, 2 world champions. They do it, I believe, for 3 or 4 repetitions. Now, this is, you could use a little bit of body English, momentum. They do 3 or 4, and Grizzly actually does it for 5 or 6 repetitions with better form and technique. So for people that are unaware of who this person is, what he does, how he lives his life, I'm thrilled, Pana, actually, that you got time to speak with him, to put respect on his name. And I do think in the industry, people really do like people who are about the life. And so I think there is a bit of reverence associated with him along with the memes. It's not just meme culture. So it's nice that you actually went there because you are someone that has clout, people look up to you and all those things. So I don't know, man. I think maybe that video might see the light of day, but I want to now take a departure point because I noticed that in your video, what you wrote and everything else, every single person, Pana, has a story. But let's get right into this introduction about your father, about his struggle that he's dealing with, about the video that you posted on Instagram after your victory, and all those things come together. Go ahead, Eric.
Can I just because at Iron Culture, we have a mixed audience of people who follow different pockets of the strength sport.
Please.
And it's important. We're trying to unify people, and I just want to let them know exactly what the heck we're talking about here. So for those who don't know, Pana is the top level 74 kilo lifter in the world right now. 66, apologies. Yep. I was literally just listening to the podcast on King of the Lifts where they interviewed Callie, so it's in my head a little bit. Top 66 kilo lifter in the IPF right now. Came back and won IPF Worlds. Lifts for France, but he is Greece by his ancestry. And for those who don't know, Kyriakos Grizzly is by many just considered this meme in kind of the strength culture. You probably come across some pictures of him if you go anywhere near Jeff Bittner's Instagram account. I'm just giving background context here, okay? Just people know. So we're now interviewing two-time IPF world champion, and we're talking about someone who is considered just a meme, but in reality, we have it from two different sources, Dr. Pack as well as Pana, understanding the background of this man, that he has been a serious lifter, high-level strength athlete way back in the day, probably as late as the late 90s, early 2000s, based upon some of our conversations with Pack, but is now, because of all this time lifting, he's accumulated some injuries, and he's doing what he can. I think the average person getting exposed to Kyriakos Grizzly would think, oh, he's choosing these movements that he can look strong on to feel like he's part of this, and he's kind of weird, and he's doing this all for the camera, but that's 100% not the case. So I do think that respect is really important to put on his name. So anyway, with that background context, I will now step back into the shadows and let this continue.
No, that was perfect. Pana, please, can you talk about that for a little bit? You said that your father, before you left Greece, he told you to win the world championship. You are the person, and part of the meme, if there's a meme of Pana, is that it's unending. The effort that you will give, you will not yield. You are a holder of the 10 second. There was first, we used to joke, Pana, we used to talk about the 6 second rep, then the 7, 8 second. You're a person that apply maximal effort to do the damn thing. There's a lot riding on this world championship. As you said, you lost everything the year before in a pretty dramatic fashion, and then this now resounding success. Talk to us a little bit about this story, about where you draw your strength, your father, this journey, 2023, because I'm speaking from a personal standpoint, every person has a story. I'm not trying to diminish any other lifter, but it's one of the most satisfying, let's say, arcs for me to witness when we're watching it on the live stream, man. So I just want to give you your respect.
Yeah, thank you. So my dad fell sick pretty much during the first lockdown in COVID, 2020. So that's when he first told me, hey, I've got a cancer, but that's fine. I don't have any surgery to do, just some chemo sessions, and I'll be good. And that first cancer went off like that. Obviously, chemo, very, very hard to deal with, very taxing. So, but fortunately, it was lockdown, so I was there with him all day. So I could just stay with him and have those moments. So that was cool. So then he got better. And 2021 is the first year I won Worlds while he was pretty healthy at that moment. And then from there, it just went south, for me personally and for him also, which is weird that my lifting career took an unexpected turn whenever his health situation took the same turn. So basically in 2022, they found another cancer, way harder to deal with, surgery. So I don't know the name of the surgery in English, but basically they cut out his throat to remove the cancer. cells, etc., etc. Don't know the details exactly, but yeah. So he went in the hospital and he stayed there for like 3 to 4 months, and that was during my prep for Worlds 2022. So whenever I was in training, I was going to see him at the hospital because he couldn't talk, he couldn't drink, he couldn't eat. So I just wanted to be there with him and for that support and just to be present for my dad. And so that went on for quite some time. And I had that conversation with Ryan on the King of the Lifts podcast, where I told him, I think right now, a year later, I have the ability to think back and see that what I was doing back then, it wasn't really training for Worlds. It was training to satisfy whatever I was feeling inside. So I wasn't doing things right. I wasn't doing things properly. I wasn't doing things coherently. I just wanted to prove myself that, I'm strong. And like I said, I think looking back, I just wanted to hurt myself. Not necessarily like I thought I would get my back tweak and I wanted my back to tweak, but more so I wanted to hurt myself inside because I wasn't in a good place at that moment because of that. And so, obviously when you ask for your body to hurt you, at some point it does. And so I tweaked my back a week out from Worlds, 10 days out from Worlds. Still went there to compete. And when I was competing at that moment, I just was constantly thinking about my dad. Like, he's watching me right now at home on his couch. I just have to show him something. I just have to show strength. And honestly, even though I placed fifth at this event, I'm extremely proud of what I did because back tweak, like 10 days out, COVID on the day of, I still showed up. I still gave it my best. And even though I did like a little under what I could do, like with a proper training session, etc., I still showed up. And I think sometimes showing up, giving it your best is the only thing you can do. Sometimes that's good enough to place you first. Sometimes that's not good enough and it places you fifth or 10th or whatever. But it just comes down to the same thing. You show up, just give it your best. And so after that, I felt extremely low because I felt like I disappointed my dad, those who had expectations in me. And then I was like, okay, 2022, I'll have a redemption meet. I'll do something. And so that redemption meet never came. In December, I was supposed to do Euros. It was like my last chance to get a ticket for Sheffield, like the biggest powerlifting meet ever. I was like, that's the moment. That's like what happened right now at Worlds in 2023. I thought it would happen at Euros 2022. Like, I get my big meet, I get my ticket for Sheffield, everything will be fine. And it went the complete opposite way. Like, if I was low after Worlds 2022, I hit rock bottom at Euros 2022, which was in December, because like I said earlier, I got disqualified for not meeting the required criteria for my squat. So basically it was two main reasons they had on me. So not standing upright enough at the beginning or at the end of the movement, and also not hitting proper depth. So hip crease below top surface of the knee. And so, yeah, when that happened, I was like, yeah, that's the lowest I've ever been in my life. And also my dad's situation was extremely complicated. His health wasn't getting any better. And so that's when he decided to go to Greece. So which was like February, March, close to that. And so personally, I had to re-qualify for Worlds because I had bombed out of Euros. So I did a meet in France to qualify for Worlds. And that meet was in March. And right after that meet, so that's when I went to Greece to see my dad. And honestly, at that moment, what I felt was, if in 2022, I felt a lot of anger, a lot of sadness because of my dad's situation. I don't know what the reason is behind it, but I was seeing hope and positivity, because instead of just letting it go, instead of like complaining all the time because of the really tough things he was facing, my dad was always showing heart, always showing me courage and bravery. And I was like, what happened to me powerlifting wise, obviously that's really tough to live. But if you compare that to what my dad is currently living, that's not insane. That sucked, but come on. There will be other meets, there will be other stuff. Whereas my dad, like, there's just one life. If he loses it or if it diminishes because of health his health situation, there's no coming back from it. I was like, I'll drive momentum from it. I'll drive positivity, and I'll follow my dad's example. And whatever I'm facing right now, I'll absorb it and grow from it. Like become a better athlete, become a better person. And that's what I did. After that moment, after I met him in Greece in April, that's what I did. And so yeah, then I trained like my ass off throughout end of April, May. And so then I had my redemption meet at Worlds, where I was the underdog. But it's like the second time, third time in a row, so that's fine. I'm used to that title now, like being the underdog, and I'm cool with that. But like I was like, objectively speaking, I was the underdog. Like Eric, you said in a podcast with the King of the Leafs once, like you said, who do you want me to win? Like I want Pana to win. But like if you ask objectively what I think, isn't winning this. And yeah, so I came into Worlds with that idea in my head that, hey, nobody believes in you for that. Like nobody outside of friends, because in friends, people were sending me messages like, hey man, you're gonna win this. They were believing in it like too much for me. But I was also honestly believing in it also myself. Like I was sure I was going to be world champ after this event. And hopefully like things turned out right. And yeah, I was able to reclaim the title. And like you say, Omar, it's like an anime arc where I get to live that with my family, with my dad. My dad was there. So the first thing I was able to do after I won was to just run straight into his arms. We shared like an incredible moment. And yeah, powerlifting, and on top of like giving meaning to my life, it also allowed me to live incredible moments with my dad. And I needed those moments with my dad, especially lately, because we had moments, obviously, but that was just rough moments, tough moments, because of everything he had to go through. And yeah, and so I was also able to see him like a week ago, because I went back to Greece to celebrate his birthday with him. And so I was able to bring home the gold medal. I also was able to do another training session with Grizzly, where I almost lost my back and my shoulder, but Grizzly saved my life. And he allowed me to compete for some time again. But again, all thanks to our bloat Lord and Savior.
You love to see it. Yeah, I have a few things I was just reflecting on as you were talking. Is one, considering how low you were after Euros, when I met you at the Sheffield, and I saw you coaching there, you were so bright, happy, full of energy. Maybe you were just hiding it well, that you were down for Euros. But it was like I immediately, when I met you and your brother as well, you guys just seemed so friendly and so wrapped up in the moment of what Sheffield was. I think we all were, because it was such an amazing experience. And I think we all felt that it was a moment of significance where our sport was on the rise, and it was something good for the whole community. So I'm assuming that's how you felt. And also, you're not just an athlete, you're also a coach. So you, I'm sure, had a lot of good feelings about seeing, all the French athletes doing well. So that was really cool to see. And I imagine that kind of you on the arc up, starting to feel positive about 2023 at that point?
It took some time for me to process what happened at Euros. And thanks to Ryan from King of the Lifts, I was able to reflect upon Euros. I won't say quickly, but at least immediately made me second guess what I was initially thinking. Because obviously when something like that happens, we're humans, right? We can make wrong assumptions. And yeah, I it took some time, but then as the weeks were going, I was more and more accounting myself responsible for what happened. Whereas at first I was like, maybe the refs got it wrong. Maybe maybe they didn't see right. Obviously, when something like that happens, you're second guessing, right? Um, but what happened exactly at Sheffield was I was just so happy to be there, man. Like seeing everybody. It's the biggest event the sport has ever known until like at that moment. I was just so happy to be there. And no matter what happened to me personally as an athlete, some months prior to that, I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the experience. I was there to coach Tiffany. So I was dedicated 100% to her. So basically, my thought process was, how am I able to make that experience the best for her as an athlete? And so if you're grumpy, if you're like, oh, I was supposed to be there, etc., that's not how you're going to make it happen, right? And also, I was just so happy to see everybody. That's where I met you, actually, because like I said, off the record, I want to say on the record, I was, and I'm a big fan of both of you guys for years now, like 10 years. And so being able to, and also that's where I met you, Omar, like in person. So it was like, nah, man, that was a dream. Like, I think we lived a dream, a lot of us together at the same time. And I was just so happy to be there. So, yeah, I wasn't 100% yet from Euros and everything, but that moment, nothing could ruin that moment. And I was just, yeah, ecstatic to be there, and also to be there with Tiff, and to be there for the athlete that I've been following for years now, and seeing her compete at the highest stage possible. That was amazing.
Yeah, and a big congrats to her for now being the 3-time 47 kilo world champ. She's an incredible athlete, and she's one of many incredible French athletes. And that doesn't surprise me at all. Your perspective on why you were carrying that certain level of appreciation and gratitude and joyousness at the Sheffield, because the reason why I immediately liked you, Pana, was because I got a true sense that you're someone who everything you do is to build up the sport, and that you have appreciation for it. And when I listened to you talk on King of the Lifts, I saw something of what I would consider a kindred spirit with the people I really appreciate the most in strength sport and bodybuilding, and our community is people who express themselves through participation, and who feel that they've benefited so much that they want to give back. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, I was a naive man when I first came into this space, whether it was the evidence-based space, whether it was the bodybuilding space, powerlifting, or even the fitness industry space as a business. And when I would see people present themselves in a certain way online, and when I would see them do things that I thought were good for the sport, I always assumed that the ulterior motives were positive as well. And I have sometimes been disabused of that notion, and I have moved towards the cynicist that Omar thinks I shouldn't become. He wants to keep me positive, but he also needs to keep me grounded in reality. And there's a lot of people who have large followings who are trying to extract things from the community rather than use their following to build it up. And you are 100% the latter. You are somebody who is trying to give to it. And I think your brand, Silent Worker, speaks to that. What you're about, what you mean, and what you have at its core. So I want to talk a little bit about what you have done in your local community to try to bring France into the fold of modern powerlifting, and to promote that sport there, why you do it, and what it means to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like, it means a lot. And I would say I don't feel like I'm doing something crazy. You know what I mean? Because that would be reserved to some people that I have in mind. Like you, for instance, you wrote a book on how to program for powerlifting, how to program for hypertrophy, how to eat, etc., etc. And for me, that's like 100,000 times more important, because you allow people to actually become coaches, and then you allow athletes to be coached by good coaches that have good information, and so on and so forth. So I think I've had those examples. Like when I started powerlifting in France, there wasn't anything on powerlifting, like anything that would make sense, right, from today's standards. And so if like you didn't exist, you didn't write your books, if Mike Tuchscherer didn't exist, if Mike Tuchscherer didn't write his books or his classrooms, his coaching philosophy and everything, like if you guys didn't share that, I wouldn't be here today, and France wouldn't be here today. Powerlifting as a powerlifting sport, because there was nothing in France. And so the chance that I had was I was into a law school that was extremely hard to get into. So really, really tough classes that were really that required a lot of time, a lot of effort in order to become good at it. And so we had English lessons. So I was doing low English, basically. And so thanks to that, I knew English. And when I started to interest myself in powerlifting, like in France, there was nothing, like zero. So immediately I was just trying to find online some stuff like on YouTube, Insta, whatever. And so that's where I came across your content for powerlifting, because I was aware of your content for bodybuilding from my gym bro days, but not the powerlifting one. Yeah. I still have something left, you know.
We see the physique.
Bro.
We see the physique, bro. You got a fantastic physique.
I'm just saying, listen, if you're willing to do 2 meets back to back after Worlds, why aren't we just dropping down maybe like to 61 and just taking a title in natural bodybuilding? I'm just saying.
Wait.
I know the head of WNBF France. I know. I'm just saying.
Eric, we do have to have a small tangent here because I do think Pana has a very good physique. You're a bodybuilder.
100%. So not even joking. 100%.
Yeah, like not even. So, Eric, give 1 minute and we'll go right back to Pana. You growing the sport. Give your actual analysis, because you've said the same about Jess Bittner. From an outside perspective, I think Pana has very good physique. What are your thoughts of his potential natural bodybuilding?
So Jess literally just posted a picture of her hitting the front of a bicep, and I said, dual sport world champion, in caps, just saying. And I'm not joking. Like, I legitimately think with the state of women's natural bodybuilding right now, she would be a fucking shoo-in to win a world title in any division that she wants except for bikini, because she is just too jacked for that division. So if she wanted to do that, and she decided, hey, you know what I want to do is feel terrible more than I do just from lifting heavy weights, and I want to diet down to not 76, but I don't know, 70, and not from a water cut, then she could do it. So that sounds like but honestly, Pana, same thing, dude. You have a really sick physique, and I would say I would be surprised if you got diced and learned how to pose and competed, that you wouldn't probably get a pro card your first season. Just saying.
Let's go, Pana.
Just saying.
Prior to Worlds, my bench training was going so well that during a YouTube video, I was like, you know what? If I don't bench 180 kilos in training or at Worlds, I'm doing a bodybuilding show. Unfortunately for myself.
We need that bench to go worse. That's all.
But I mean, it's already done, because I didn't bench 180 prior to Worlds nor at Worlds. So now I have to do a bodybuilding show.
Oh. Look, no. Oh, Pana, next arc, bro. It's your next arc, all right? You're picking up, you're like the Infinity Gauntlet. Real quick, Pana, we do want you to get back to it, but I will say, before I forget, speaking of which, like the potential possibilities, I don't know if you feel the same way, Eric, but with some of the people, especially the American lifters that are rumored to be coming over now to the IPF affiliate, I feel that the Sheffield 2024 arguably might be even like bigger and better than the first one. So really, you not competing in the first one can mean absolutely nothing, because I do think this next one will be bigger. And to your credit, what you've been doing in France has really helped that side grow. Please continue talking about that, because I think also, Eric, maybe to frame it, how many competitors, as example, Pana, at Sheffield, there are 24 competitors. How many were French? Was it 4? How many? What was the amount? Like, that's a high percentage of the world, population competing. I didn't think that Leah.
I think it was 4. I think it was 4, like
Naomi,
Tiffany, Noemi, Jad, Leah.
And Leah.
4. So 4 out of the 24, right? And now you're coming next year. Like, come on, dude. Anyways, so you, Pana, you growing the sport, you participating in, so not only being a lifter, being a coach, but actively trying to grow this damn thing. Please continue.
again, I had these examples where people were just like casually providing information on how to program, how to get stronger, how to squat, how to bench, how to dead. And I was like, yeah, that content doesn't exist right now in France. So I might as well do it. Like first, obviously, I have to get better at it, coaching, training, etc. And then why not do it? So yeah, that's how it started. I wasn't alone because I had a really, really good friend of mine. His name is Corentin Clément, who's also like 105 junior world champion from 2022. And he just participated in the Open while still a junior. And I think he placed like fifth, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So, really, really strong athlete. That was in the same case as me. And so, yeah, we're both doing that, giving a lot of information in French, obviously. And yeah, my thinking is like, powerlifting saves my life, basically, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I didn't know nothing before I found powerlifting. And when I found powerlifting, I was like, okay, that was it. What I was searching for, what I was looking for my whole life, that was that thing, which doesn't make sense, right? Just lifting heavy weights, sometimes to make to hurt yourself, doesn't make sense. But at that moment, I was like, yeah, that's the thing. And so my thinking is the same way powerlifting helped me, the way it saved my life, the way it impacted my life and the life of people around me. I want to be able to give that chance and that opportunity to everybody else. Like for some people, that won't be it. They'll try and that won't be it. But for some others, maybe it will be the exact same thing. And right now, for instance, we were talking about Tiffany, 47 kilo, three times world champion. Before that, she was doing boxing. She was at school and everything. And now she's like one of the GOAT of the her weight class, potentially GOAT of female powerlifting. And she lives through powerlifting and she lives thanks to powerlifting. And yeah, I have so many examples of people where powerlifting changed their lives. And I'm like, I want to be able to just offer that chance and offer that opportunity to everybody. And that just starts with knowing that powerlifting is a sport that you can participate in, which a lot of people don't know. Like some people like to squat, to bench, dead, and they don't even know powerlifting exists. So my first goal was like, hey, let's try to make the sport bigger. Let's try to make people understand that there's a sport that's called powerlifting. It exists. It's easy to participate in. The entry barrier is really, really low. And then you can start from there and so on and so forth. And so, my steps were like, yeah, make people realize powerlifting exists, then offer a lot of free content, how to program, how to squat, how to bench, how to dead. That's content that I'm doing on Insta. That's content that I'm doing on YouTube. And yeah, but I had this feeling and this will to do that thanks to your guys' examples where 10 years ago when I was in France at home, gym bro, I was able to watch at your videos and understand better things and have a better perspective on a lot of stuff, bodybuilding wise, hypertrophy wise, thanks to you guys. And so for me, I'm just becoming another layer on the cake. It's like if those layers don't exist, then you cannot add anything on top of that. And hopefully, my goal is to become one of the layers and to allow for the sport to grow even bigger, and for other people to get the opportunity to impact their sport and to impact it in a positive way. So, and it goes from producing content on social media to like sponsoring events, creating events, refereeing, being a volunteer for your federation. Like lately, we did some bits with Eurosport for the IPF. We did that like completely voluntarily with the Eurosport team. So it's whenever something happens, it's an opportunity. It takes some time. You do it. Even if it takes some time, even if I'm sleeping less, even if I could be doing something else at that moment, I'm just making it happen whenever I can. And so that's pretty much my my thinking and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Eric, we gotta put some respect on Pana's name because you recently just had the Silent Workers powerlifting meet, but you've been instrumental in terms of growing powerlifting in France, and we want to talk about that. for a second here. We just highlighted how there's 4 French lifters at Sheffield. That is a high percentage. It's undeniable. Pana, what do you think have been the factors for this meteoric rise?
Can I even build it up a little more just to show how much French has risen recently?
Yeah.
So in my recollection of going to Worlds, say, let's say pre-COVID, France had lifters, but it was absolutely not one of the teams you would expect to be vying for like the top 3 team points. So for those who don't know, the way it works at IPF Worlds is if you place in the top 10, you earn points for your team. And then your 5 highest placing men and women, they contribute points to the team points, right? And historically, it was always Russia and the U.S. And more recently in raw lifting especially, the U.S. was typically in the top spot. And then in more recent times, we've seen a big rise in Europe, and I would say unexpectedly in France. Like if you had to ask me in 2019, hey, what European teams do you think are going to be in the top spots? I'd be like, oh, probably Sweden and Great Britain, because they have always had a strong culture and they're growing more SBDs there. There's more attention. So I think France, to many people outside of France, has come out of nowhere. And I really want to get your perspective on, what the hell is going on in France? And I think we didn't see it coming because it's, we're English speakers, right? But just to give some respect, the second place team in both men and women's was France this year. And on the women's side, they tied on points, and it was just decided by the good lift points, which is crazy. That almost never has to happen. So like a very, very deep team. Like the first way that you have a chance at winning or placing very high for the country team points is actually filling out a whole team. So like, on the men's side where you guys placed second, it wasn't that close to the US, but you guys had such a robust team of really good people. Like you had Antoine Garcia in 4th place in the 59 kilo class. You won the 66s. And you guys had in 6th place Paul Ramboville, called Rambo, in the 74s. In the 83s, you had Yannis Bouchot in 4th place in the 83s. Like all very high placings. In the 105s, you mentioned him, Coco Clement. He placed 5th. In the 120s, you guys had Nicolas Perrault. And that's like a really strong men's team. And the women's team, I think I was actually expecting them to win. And I think if, Jade Jacob had switched spots with Natalie Richards, that would have been the deciding factor, and it would have been a win for the French team. But a lot of the French lifters on the women's side are quite well known. Tiffany Chapon, Noémie Alibert, Jade Jacob. There's just so many good top-level French lifters, and it's really been something that has been just surprising to me. Amélie Emergier, my pronunciation is not great, my apologies. Obviously, Leah Bavois. So, like, there are really just this incredible stable of very high-level lifters coming out of France. And that only happens when you have a very healthy federation and when you have a really interested population, and that the fitness industry itself is interested in competing in powerlifting. And for anyone who didn't watch the live stream of Silent Worker, I recommend they do, because it gives you an indication of the potential popularity of powerlifting. Like, it doesn't just have to be Sheffield, put on by, SBD Central, right outside of their headquarters, bringing in the best lifters in the world. Silent Worker Invitational Meet, they had some amazing dancers at the start. They had, show components. They had, international stars coming out. They invited the, Ryan and Rory to come do the commentary. It was something that was a spectacle like you just don't see or haven't seen historically in powerlifting. So something is happening in France, and I just want people to understand that, because I think it is sometimes, Omar, you've talked about this, like, quote unquote secondary markets. Like, what's that album recorded something live at the Rubicon?
Oh, Alive at Budokan. Yeah, Cheap Trick.
Budokan. Yeah, Cheap Trick. Like, you're like, oh, it took off later in Japan. And like, it might be a little of that. Like, powerlifting is coming in a delayed sense or a delayed timeline to France. But to me, it seems like there is something more than just that.
Oh, yeah.
That there is actually a certain love, appreciation, that it's caught fire and that it means something and has really become popular in France. So I want to understand that. So
I think one of the main one of the main reasons it happened is because in France, the fitness community is quite big already. So, like a lot of people don't know, we have a guy called Thibaut Inchey, who is the top one European fitness influencer on YouTube. He's got like probably I don't want to say anything stupid, but like millions of followers on YouTube. I'll tell you right now how much he has, but that's really, really big.
Huge.
That is huge.
Yeah, it might be one of the,
is gigantic.
Literally might be one of the biggest in the world then, Pana.
Yeah. So he's number one Europe for sure, but probably in the world. But what I mean by that is that, so a lot of people care about lifting weights.
Yeah.
What was happening was nobody knew what powerlifting was. Nobody knew it was sport. So the thing is, slowly, some people started interesting themselves into powerlifting. And for me, like there are 2-3 turning points. One of them was actually Thibaut Inchey, so the biggest fitness YouTuber like in France and probably in the world, actually did a collab video with Leah. And so that created something where like Leah's social media, I think she took like maybe 10K followers within 3 days on Insta. And so she started to become bigger and bigger. And so slowly some good YouTubers, but a little smaller than Thibaut, started interesting themselves into powerlifting. And so they did some collabs. So another collab with Leah. I had a collab also myself with another fitness influencer, YouTuber. And so people started to understand slowly what powerlifting was. And so that happened pretty much during COVID, during lockdown, where people were actually a lot more on their phones, social media, Instagram, YouTube, because they had more free time because of not working, and etc. And I think that created the perfect scenario, basically, to have a lot of audience and a lot of people attracted to the sport. Then I think the other biggest component is actually the people running things in France. So the French president, the French vice president are volunteers that are that don't work anymore. Like I don't know how to say it in English, but
retired.
They're retired. So they have free time, and they allow that free time to developing the French Federation. The thing is, obviously, they're not on social media, they're not on YouTube, they're not on nothing. But when we came out and when we were like, hey, we think that could be a good thing, I think you should invest on that. Instead of being like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, we've been running this federation for years. They're like, oh, you think so? Okay, let's try it. And so slowly, thanks to their agreement, thanks to their help, thanks to their involvement, thanks to their organization, we were able to put forth certain things. Turns out those things we wanted to put forth actually paid out. And so once we proved ourselves to them, where we're like, hey, our ideas usually tend to work. They started to give us more and more credit, more and more possibilities. And so that's how it goes. So right now, basically for French nationals, we'll have like a prime time sessions, exactly like at Worlds. And we actually told them, hey, we think that could be a good idea because like more viewership, more involvement, etc., etc. And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing because first you have the people on social media, YouTube, Insta, etc., more and more noticing what powerlifting is. And then you have all of those volunteers, all of those people that are willing to give their time, willing to sacrifice their weekends to allow the sport to grow. And as athletes like Leah, myself, Tiff, all of those athletes, we usually go every weekend to volunteer. We go to spot people, we go to load plates, etc. And so when you have those examples of athletes that you respect and that you look up to, and you see them behave a certain way, like, okay, that's the way you should behave. And so thanks to that, a lot of top level lifters, instead of just being like, hey, I'm just going to lift and go home, what they do, they stay to referee, they stay to volunteer, they help organize the event. And that's just like a positive circle all around. Like in our powerlifting club, because in France you have to be part of the club to be able to powerlift, in our club we're like 30, 40 people. And on those 30, 40 people, we're like 25 referees. Because we're like, we have to be refs because we have to give our free time, our spare time to our sport to give back. And I think that's one of the main reasons as to why it has exploded in France. So you have that genetic potential pool that has been run through thanks to those social media influence. And then you have people understanding that powerlifting is a sport where you have to give it your absolute best. You have to go in there with passion. And I think that's the recipe for success.
And give back. Like, I think that is... So the U.S., and I can say this because I'm an American, right? We have a very individualistic streak, and there's positive aspects of that. Don't get me wrong, right? Everyone getting to feel that they are unique and that they have something to contribute. I think that's a very valuable quality. But I think a lot of the times we have this messaging, whether it's subtle or just straight up in your face, of you can rise above everyone else and be the star. It is your time, and all these things will come to you. And it is all about the benefits of rising to the top and what you then can extract. Like, then you get to kind of sit on the throne and await the riches to come to you. And it is not a common thing for top U.S. athletes to necessarily also be coaches, volunteers, spotters, loaders, and refs. There are definitely examples where that is the case. And for anyone listening who is a U.S. athlete who is heavily involved, competes, and does that, I am not talking about you. You are awesome. Thank you. But the fact that it is the majority and the norm in France where athletes... Like, we were trying to get a podcast with Pana at Worlds, and he was like, no, I got to go to the fitness expo, run the booth, and then I got to get back on training because I'm competing at Silent Worker and running the meet.
Respect.
Like, just to give some real respect on your name. And like all these top level lifters, like your national team is also like your refs. I imagine it's a challenge because for these international competitions, each country that's participating has to send in some of their referees as well. And you're like, hey, well, we can't send in most of our referees because they are our national team athletes. So like that to me is a sign of a really healthy community, because when we reach the younger generation, and now I'm going to sound like the old man yelling at the clouds, and I'm fine with it. I'm 40. Like, I am the elder statesman, and I'm accepting that role now. It's fine. All right. I'm doing an M1 meet on Saturday. All right. So, and that's true. So the younger generation, when they get exposed to powerlifting, they're not just getting exposed to squat, bench, deadlift, 401 RM in the sport format. They're also getting exposed to the community philosophy. And if the philosophy is, hey, you can be big on TikTok if you look jacked and if you have these big lifts, and that'll be really cool because it'll be like high school and you get to be popular on social media, that's what they're going to be wrapped up in and do it for. And hopefully they get to see all those other benefits of self-improvement, striving towards something, and becoming a better person through pushing yourself to your capabilities. But if they see from the start that the biggest stars, quote unquote, in our sport are contributing to their community just as much as they're competing. Like, hey, I can't hang out with my boys because I have to go run this meet, because I have to go give back, because I have to ref, because I have to spot and load. Or yes, I know I just maxed out and won a world title a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to go ahead and put on a show for the benefit of others to help, this competition be better. And I'm going to take a minor L for that, for the greater W for the community. When people see that as a philosophy, then they realize, okay, that's what this is about. And not just, oh, I accidentally stumbled onto the positive side of it. Because I can tell you, as a young man who got involved in bodybuilding, which has far more potential to be toxic as a culture than powerlifting, there are so many young people who get basically hooked on the idea of look great, win in life, get the girl, get the car, or get the boy, get the car, or whatever. And it can take them a decade of pursuing something for the wrong reasons before they actually can look inward, if they just happen to have the right influence or a wake-up moment or one of those bad experiences or a therapist who helps them out of an eating disorder to then look at it a different way. But most of the time, that's not what happens. They just go, screw this toxic sport, I'm out. So the importance of what you're doing, and I'm done yelling at the clouds now, I swear to God, soapbox away, cloud passes, elder statesman sits back and lets you talk again. The importance of what you're doing by putting the community as a central piece of what it is in powerlifting to be a power lifter can't be understated. And I just want to say that. Thank you very much, and I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah. Like like for me, you ask me, who's the people who helped you the most in your powerlifting career? I'm like, the people who actually run the French Federation, the people who run the IPF, because without them, like, there's no federation, so I'm not competing. So basically, I think it's extremely important to, like you said, Eric, just give back to the community. And, you know, you can actually, what you were saying is we all dream, of it, like having a good car, being friends with nice people, etc., and so on and so forth. But you can actually do all of that while still giving back, while still trying to become a better person, trying to become a better human being. And, you know, uh, when I lost in 2022, I had the same people around me. Like they didn't appear because I won in 2021, and they disappear because I lost in 2022. And I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is your connections, your interactions. And why do I like powerlifting so much? It's because that's where I feel alive. Whether it be when I'm competing, whether it be when I'm training, whether it be when I'm watching a meet, whether it be when I'm doing a podcast, powerlifting related, that's it. So you know, why shouldn't I give my absolute best to try help the sport? And if it benefits me, that's cool. And if it's not, if it doesn't benefit me directly, it will benefit somebody else along the line that will benefit the sport, and that will make sport that will help sport. Help the sport get bigger. So yeah, I've always had that philosophy, and like I said, I've had it thanks to examples in like you guys, where you put all this content on social media, those books, those informations, and because I benefit from it, I'm like, hey, how do I give back? So obviously, you buy the book, you give back to our boy Eric, but you also then you can add your stone to the pile of stone, to the pile of rocks that will then become a castle, and that's better for everybody.
Look, Eric, I'm just gonna say it. Powerlifting would die if not for people like Pana, and I mean it when I say that. That I think it's integral for individuals such as yourself, especially at a high level, to retain that attitude. Real quick, I'm going to leap a couple different areas because I do want to put some respect also on Eric for what you said. Eric, without trying to trash America or anything, you now live in New Zealand. Would you say, and I don't think this is a coincidence, that New Zealand for the women's team too, also their points, like they did exceptionally well at Evie Corrigan, Carlina, like so many fantastic athletes. Just with a yes or no, would you say that the New Zealand powerlifting scene and the people that participate are more communal in nature than what you experience in America?
I think that not necessarily on average, but the difference is at the highest level of the sport.
Yeah.
So you brought up Evie Corrigan, and it's a good thing you did, because Evie is the president of the Auckland Powerlifting Association.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So she is literally running our provincial association here in Auckland while she's also competing at the highest level. She competed at Commonwealths, which we hosted in Auckland while running it. I was trying to get her away from the door, checking people's banquet tickets at Commonwealth so she could actually sit down and have a drink, because literally she had just done competing and she was running it. She also coaches. She's also a ref. So, and that's the norm, so for example, her coach, Jason Clark, not only is he doing a master's degree at AUT specifically on powerlifting coaching and spending his time doing that, and he runs a gym, North Shore Barbell, and coaches all of his athletes, but he's also on the APA committee. He's our record keeper. So he's the guy I pay off to make sure that my records count for the Auckland provincial level. So like if he wasn't there to take my bribes, I wouldn't be in the record books. So this is a big deal, No, but in all seriousness, 100%.
Yeah.
I think the difference is that there are some athletes who kind of come into the American scene and they're like, oh shit, I can get some records. I can be the top dog. Awesome. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with that. You might have kids, you might have a family. Like Pana, myself, and Omar, we're unique. We are the guys who made lifting our entire lives, and that is what it is. And I'm not expecting anyone to give any more than what they can give, but I am just saying, hey, think about what you've got and think about how you can pay that forward a little bit. Even a small degree, whatever is reasonable for you. And I don't think people are intentionally not doing that at a high level in the States, but I don't think they've taken the time to think about, should I be doing that, or is there value in that? If that helps.
Pana, go ahead. You want to say something, Pana?
Yeah. So, the problem we had in France was that we didn't know that the federation needed volunteers. So that's also something that's a little tricky. It's because the federation is like, yeah, obviously everybody knows we need volunteers. So if they don't show up, it's because they don't want to do it. But like when I started, I was in a club where the president was a complete douche, and he never told us, hey, you know that you could rep, you know that you could help the federation grow the sport. So I think sometimes it goes both ways. Like sometimes federations aren't completely transparent and clear. Like, hey, we need people here, there. Where could you fit? So my best advice would be like, if you're interested in that, you should just like send an email. Hey, I want to volunteer. I want to ref. I want to help load. I want to help organize the sport. And if the federation needs you, then hey, you can help. But yeah, on that aspect, I think sometimes it's a little tricky. And then obviously, the more people do that, the less people who do that have to work hours and hours. Because if you have 3 volunteers, then they'll have to do 50 hours each every week. If you have 10 of them, 30 of them, it's like divided by the amount of volunteers. So sometimes it really starts with a little fire, and then it becomes that big bright fire. And that, I think that's exactly what we had in France. And to your point, for instance, I was just thinking of it, for the female powerlifting team we sent in France. We have 47 kilo Tiffany, referee, volunteer. 57 kilo Jad, referee, volunteer. 69 kilo Leah, referee, volunteer. Amelie, 84 plus, referee, volunteer. So out of the team we have, like almost half of them, even more of half of them are volunteers or refs. And they're all are like high-level lifters. Some of them gain their life through powerlifting. Some of them don't. It's more so, hey, you can do both. You can be extremely competitive. Like personally, I want to beat every other 66 kilo in the world. I want to be the best. I want to be extremely competitive. You can do that while still giving to your sport. I just don't want to give to the other 66s because I want to be there. But to everybody else up to 6, I want to give back everything to you. That was a joke, obviously.
Of course, if you could ref in the same session you were competing and give them red lights, you absolutely would.
Yeah.
You're like, that wasn't depth. You wasn't depth. Your butt didn't touch the ground. You're done.
You're done.
Sorry.
Now,
Sorry, Kyoto. Get out of here.
Now, I will say, Eric, that I think to put some respect to the American lifters, I think they've had the infrastructure built over time, and they might not be aware that someone had to build it, right? So in France, as an example, in New Zealand, there are people, you need to invest in the infrastructure. So if it's not there, you need the active participation. And I think that just bodes well for the health of that specific nation's, powerlifting team. As you say, paying it forward, Pana, when they see you do it, when they see Leah do, when they see these top levels lifters do it, it sets a standard. And I do think that's an underrated component. And I think it's not surprising then, Eric, to see New Zealand do well on the world stage, to see more people participating in New Zealand, to see more people participating in France. There's something I also want to talk about that Pana said that I think is a missing ingredient that often doesn't get enough respect. But before we do that, we do have to go quickly, Eric, on the America Apology Tour. Only because Pana, Eric called, he said Malta was beautiful, which just certainly seemed like it was beautiful for everyone there. I believe he called Colleen a shithole in America. Now, I will say, Eric, hold on. There is, but hold on, Gabby, I want to say, bro, I did screenshot the other story after that was said.
Oh, so you got it? I tagged you.
No, I got you, bro. Gabby said, a lifter, she said, I zoned out listening to Iron Culture podcast while squatting until someone said they hated Killeen, Texas. As someone that was born as Fort Hood in Killeen, I couldn't agree more. So anyways, I'm just saying.
That's Gabby Martinez.
Yeah.
She's the current 67.5 kg USAPL national champion.
Yep.
And she's from the area. So we get a pass.
We get the pass. We get the pass.
The fact that she currently is a Team 30 MJ athlete means nothing. It has no bearing on that.
Nothing. So, why would it?
Zero. I also have another apology I need to make to a different country.
Go.
And that is
yes.
actually 2 countries, both Sweden and Finland.
Yeah.
So while I was commentating, while I was giving back to the sport at Worlds, while I was commentating for I think it might have been the 120 plus B session, I may have had a Finnish lifter come out, and I went, "Oh, you have a lifter from Finland, land of Aliko," because
It's okay.
I'm an idiot American. You can take the American out of America, but I am still an American, unfortunately. I even get my dual citizenship, but it's still dual citizenship, which means I'm half stupid. So I apologize to Sweden. Of course, Sweden is the land of Alico. And I just, you guys are in the same general region. I'm sorry.
Eric,
I'm just...
don't worry, folks. We're going to be back in Texas soon, myself and Eric. We're going to do the America Apology Tour. There is something, though, before I forget.
I'm going to get shot.
No. We'll just drive quickly enough. Don't worry, Eric. It's fine. Bulletproof vest yourself. They couldn't even... You're so svelte now that they wouldn't even be able to tell you're wearing it. So you're good. I want to say, Pana, something you highlighted that I do think in general within the powerlifting space, it could benefit more from. And I do also want to give a shout out to Korea, because I believe there's a Korean YouTuber who also is massive that has platformed some lifters in Korea that helped. And I know there's that now offshoot USAPL, like Korea, like a bunch of things I saw, like Russ and some lifters go over there. But their talent pool is increasing. Pana, to your point, thanks in large part. I think of it as the top of the funnel, like they talk about it in marketing, where you need that person to give the greater exposure. So this is someone that allows people such as Leah, yourself, you're talking about that French person, that French YouTuber, or several YouTubers, to turn the eye of a general audience, right? Because if you take a look, and we all like to joke about powerlifting or whatever we do, it's like, it's just 3 lifts. Like, why are we in pain? Why do we do these things? You need to contextualize things. You need to create a framework of understanding. And to do that is usually through a person. And so the person is the content creator. They identify with it, like, hey, we should do that. So I also don't think it's surprising, to your point, you highlighted, and I think it was very astute, Pana, you're a very smart person, that there were maybe some content creators that were there. The same thing happened in North America. Like, how do you think powerlifting, it wasn't like, a lifter, like an 83 kg lifter just doing the damn thing, and everyone's like, oh my God, like, that's so cool, I want to do that. You had to overcome the barrier of explaining, first off, what's the difference between powerlifting and the weightlifting. But I do think for the health and longevity of the sport, there's different pockets that I think we should always be open to collaborating, as long as you're properly represented, right? Like, let's say, like, I am going to throw shade to that YouTube channel, like that, the biggest YouTuber, Mr. Beast. Like, if you want to do a powerlifting, it probably isn't going to be represented well, right? Like, if he's to talk about powerlifting, like all his content, who knows? But as long as the sport or the given task is given fair representation, I think it's something we should not shy away from. And I'll just say, in short, because I want to throw it back over to you, Pana, what do you think can be done on a global level? Because now you're ambassador for the sport, for France, for so many different things, to continue to grow it. I want to be positive, because I want to believe it was wonderful being at Sheffield, seeing so many people from around the world. I do think it's important, this thing I still think we're in a slightly tenuous place, in the sense that worldwide participation, I anticipate, will continue to increase. Its impact in the greater cultural zeitgeist, as long as the talent pool has already been kind of selected. Let's say in America, millions of kids have now picked up a kind of a barbell. Those that are good at it continue to do it. So now we have the top level lifters. So that is okay. But I do want to hear from you then, because it seems like France is experiencing something that happened in North America and other parts of the world. Like I brought up Korea as an example, where I'm forgetting the YouTuber's name, who is now interested in doing the damn thing. And that's why, in part, it's exploding there. You've witnessed this meteoric rise, Pana, in France. What are some other factors, as far as you're concerned, maybe on a national level then, for France? What could be done? You're doing the damn thing via the silent worker meet, being a ref. The idea, I also want to highlight the flexibility. You said, like, the president or the individual that retired were the receptive to ideas. I think you need to have dialogue in order for these things to happen. I think whoever is at the head of these other federations or these governing bodies need to be open. You doing those things for Eurosport, where you gave kind of the guideline of this is what the squat is, the deadlift, and so on and so forth. What needs to be done? You're someone that's participating. You're someone that's seen the meteoric rise. Let's talk about first France, and let's talk about maybe the sport of powerlifting.
Honestly, that's a really, really good question. And if we have the solution to it, we could blow powerlifting to soccer or football levels. But yeah, honestly, what I would say is, like, the fitness industry is quite big on social media, on YouTube, on Insta. It's quite big, and now the portion of that audience that knows about powerlifting is becoming bigger. But I think the easiest way to tackle it would be the biggest percentage of that audience you can make this powerlifting discovered to them, that's loud. Like that audience really already cares about lifting weights, looking jacked. And if you're able to touch that audience and be like, hey, you can lift weights, or you can be jacked, and also you can do squat, bench, deadlift, and that will help you do both. And mind you, that's also a sport that you could have like a title, national title for, or regional title, or you could have fun with, because that's really a nice sport. I think that's the biggest thing. Like bang for your buck, I would say that's the biggest one. And yeah, I would say that would be the case in France, but worldwide, because usually in all of the countries, fitness is quite already big. And if there are powerlifters listening to that, I would say, yeah, if you can have a percentage, a fraction of that audience that already exists and that already is on social media, that's where you make the sport grow quickly, quote unquote.
Let's go. Oh, and Pana, before I forget, then I want to bring it back to you, your own personal journey, because we spoke about 2023, you now reclaiming your title, but that's another arc completed. I want to hear more from yourself, my man, about what's next, because this was something, like I said, it was one of the highlights for sure from IPF Worlds. Shout out to Malta 2023. What is next for you? Because it seems like there's always with yourself, which I like, you have a resilience to you, and maybe that's what Eric was highlighting at Sheffield, where you had just, Euros had just taken place, and you're how do you say, digesting that. But when I met you, to your point, you're very warm, cordial, all those sorts of things. You have this inner resilience to you. So I know the fire burns ever bright for more that you want to accomplish. What is it that you set your sights on now? Obviously, Sheffield, you got the invite for 2024, but just in general, let's say, what are you looking forward to then?
After I won everything in 2021, I was like, yeah, what's next? And obviously 2022 was next, where everything went south. And so what happened was, my goal for this year, 2023, was to reclaim all of the titles that I lost in 2022. So I already reclaimed the world title. Now I had to reclaim the national title in September. Then I'll have the European title in December. And after that, we have Sheffield, and I can't wait to be at Sheffield, because this year, you guys were there. It was like we cannot describe with words how intense, how insane, how out of this world that experience was. Just like watching the lifts, but also just meeting with everybody at the same place at the same time. And so I was extremely happy this year at Sheffield, because what I did as an athlete wasn't sufficient to qualify for Sheffield. For me, as an athlete, you have to understand your value. Basically, in MMA, they usually say you're only as good as your last fight. And my last fight was me bombing out of Euros. So I wasn't that good at that moment. And so I accepted the fact that I wasn't good enough to compete at Sheffield last year. And so I made up my mind, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy myself 100% this time while not competing, because next year I'm competing at Sheffield. And so because of what I did at Worlds and winning, I got my ticket to Sheffield 2024. And I just can't wait to live that experience for as an athlete right now, this time around. And then, besides all of that, as an athlete, obviously, as cliche as that sounds, I just want to continue living that life. I just want to continue to train, because I just love training. Like you said, Eric, we're weird people for years and years and years. We're lifting weights, and we were lifting weights, powerlifting wise, when nobody cared about it. So obviously now that people start to care about it, that's even more satisfying. But yeah, I just want to be able to continue to lift weights. And my dad's situation, my dad's story, really allowed me to see that life is way more fragile and short than we would like it to be, and might as well live it completely. And to complete the circle we were talking about earlier, I just want to live it. You have to live it.
I do.
Like the Greek thing would say, you just have to live it. And I just want to live that experience and get to do the sport that I love, that I care about, with the people that I care about. That's pretty much it. But yeah, as an athlete, I still have a couple of shots to shoot in the coming months.
And the bodybuilding show.
And
I have the bodybuilding show. But like seriously, I'll have to do it. Like I gave my word, so I may have to hire a bodybuilder.
If there was just someone, if there was only some person.
I'm excited.
Eric, what's your core body temperature, and are you still able to get hot and bothered with how cold you are with the diet?
So I'm going to say this in Fahrenheit, just so it makes sense to everybody. It's going to sound like it's Celsius, though, because I'm in the middle of prep. It's a solid 20 degrees right now, and it's this is funny. Some might say, Eric, you're going to die. Go to the hospital. I say, hey, you got to live it.
You got to live it.
Yeah. So no, but in all seriousness, bro, if you do a bodybuilding show, I'm going to be so hyped. And the fact that you're like, I said it, I got to do it, I'm going to do it. It just speaks to your integrity.
Yeah.
You're gonna, So my questions are like, are you gonna properly prep for it? Or are you gonna be like, look, you know what? I'm cutting weight, and I'm just gonna jump on that, a couple weeks out, and then we'll
because you have Sheffield. Like, I know it's super important.
I mean, I don't want you to like mess up your actual prep for powerlifting, but
honestly, like when I said I'm doing a bodybuilding show, it's not I'm just going to show up like 18% body fat, and just like if I do it, it's like I'll have to do it for the meme. So I'll have to actually diet. I'll have to do. So honestly, I'm currently thinking of a time frame where I could do it without hindering too much my performance. Because like you said, there's Sheffield, and I could be like, hey, I'm doing it right after Sheffield, but then it's close to Worlds, because then you have Worlds in June, Sheffield is in February. So, but I'll have to figure a time frame, and if I do it properly, like dieting and everything. But it won't be men's physique though. I don't think I'm doing like bodybuilding
Pana.
like physique.
Oh no, Pana. We're gonna have to. I mean, my man squats like twice as much as any other person he's gonna be on stage with, and he's gonna wear board shorts. I mean.
You cover up them beautiful thighs.
I don't have big quads though. I don't have big quads.
It's true. Yeah, I can understand. You're trying to go in the division to maximize your performance, and it also doesn't require you to get quite as shredded. Question. How much weight do you cut in water to make the 66s?
So at the saddle worker meet, at first I was like, I'm not going to cut weight, and then I was like, I'm going to cut weight. So I did a mini water cut, and I did lose a whole lot because I was in Greece. I was traveling with the plane and everything. So I just lost 1.3 kilo of food mass manipulation, water intake. And then so I woke up the morning of around 68.6. And so I had to cut within those 2.6 kilos within 2 hours.
So you sawed it off the last 2.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I weighed in at 65.99.
So is your walk around weight that I see, like if I look at your body comp, that's like 70-ish?
Yeah, 69. So 70-ish is really like when I go to restaurants, I don't really track a whole lot. But then if I track well, etc., I'm closer to 68.5 to 69, yeah.
All right, dude. Get you down to 65, 64. Men's physique, good to go.
Let's go.
But I don't mean a water cut 64. I mean like
yeah.
Like wake up in the morning and I'm fully hydrated. Yeah, dude, you'll be fucking diced.
Possible?
Yeah, you'll be diced, bro.
Let's go. This is the new arc. You were wondering what? So you got the Sheffield arc. You got like these divergent things. Look,
I mean, you're not gonna feel good, and your training's gonna be poor, but you will look very lean. And it may be like, we'll have to decide whether that's worth it or not. But
maybe Sheffield Worlds 2024, then this physique. It's up to you.
Why not?
What
we have to think about when the timing of Euros, Nationals, Sheffield, and Worlds is, and where you have basically a 2-month stint where it's okay if you feel terrible.
Yeah. Now, I will say, Eric, before I forget, I do want to to be serious for a second before we wrap it up. I do want to give a massive thank you, Pana, for yourself in terms of being vulnerable, talking about these things, because I actually think recently, Eric, I'm not sure if you agree, men in general, we don't open up nearly as much, but it was very refreshing, especially around the time of Sheffield, where we had individuals such as like Jonathan Akaiko. He shared his story, King of Lifts, about the passing of his aunt. Jesus, where he had that. It's one of the most like well-liked, well-viewed videos where he's in tears thinking about his mom and how he doesn't want to disappoint her and all the things they've been through. You discussing what happened with your father. I do think it's important. I think it's powerful. I think it sends a very good message to everyone in the space, for men in particular, where sometimes we do have this kind of archetype, this area, we're here to whatever, conquer, dominate, do all these things, and we become memes of ourselves. And I think the ability to open up and to understand that vulnerability is not a weakness whatsoever. In fact, in many, many ways, it is a strength. I think it's extremely powerful, and I think it's something that this space needs more of. So I just want to thank you on a personal note for the openness, and that's one of your traits in general. It's like the agreeability, the openness, the willingness to participate in the community and grow it. It's all a reflection of you, man. So I think it doesn't surprise me, but it's always welcome to see.
Thank you very much. Like I said, the situation with my dad is it's been for years now, but it's until now I didn't find the way to explain it, the way to express it, because I was still battling with it, emotionally, coming to terms with the fact that my dad won't be the same anymore, that he had to retire really early, and so on and so forth. And so, I actually opened up during the King of the Lift podcast, and that wasn't planned. Like, I didn't plan to discuss it. Then at the moment, it just seemed natural to me to do so. And I think one thing that I'm really proud of for myself is I'm not afraid to show my failures, my weaknesses. Like when I bombed out of Euros, I could have been like, hey, those rests. No, like I was responsible for that. I had to work. I had to change my squat. I had to make the proper adjustments, and I had to own the fact that I was the one responsible for putting myself into that position and having to face the consequences of those actions. And I think the thing with that is, yeah, okay, I'm world champion, 2 times world champion, whatever. I'm still a human being. As a human being, I'm afraid. As a human being, I have weaknesses. As a human being, I have things that I'm ashamed of, that I'm not really proud of, that hurt me. And I've never been afraid to show that. And I think sometimes you have to show character, but in order to show character, you actually have to be in a tough spot. Because when things are easy, you're not showing character. It's easy to be smart or to be smug when things are actually easy. It's when things are extremely rough, extremely tough, that you show your real character. And yeah, just want to thank my parents for always showing me the way on that. And the same way my parents showed me the way, I want to be able to show that to other people. Like, hey, if you fall, like I fell off 20 times, doesn't matter. At some point, you'll have to face that thing. You'll have to face that adversity, come back off, and go back at it. So I'm not ashamed for my failures, for my past failures. And no matter if people talk about you like, hey, oh, once I didn't make weight once because I was sick and I was water cutting, etc. It went south. People were like, hey, Pana doesn't know how to make weight. Then I had to make weight 20 times to prove them wrong. Then, hey, Pana doesn't know how to squat because I bumped out of at Euros. That's fine. I'll show them. So, when people tell you something, you always have to ask for yourself, is it true? And if that's true, you have to admit it, acknowledge it, and make it better. And we'll all become better at some point. We can always move forward. And that's what I'm trying to convey. That's the message I'm trying to convey. And that's hopefully the message I was able to show with what happened to me at Worlds in 2023. Like, hey, look at where I was a month ago. Look at where I'm at now. And that's all thanks to my connections with my close ones, my training. And my training is the result of myself, of my character, of the qualities that I think are needed in order to become a good man. And as long as you express all of that for some time, at some point you'll get something good out of it.
Omar, how can you even say anything to that? You love to hear it, you love to see it, and I'm so excited. It was such a good thing to see that victory of you on the platform. Like, he was referring to the IPF World Preview show where that based on the numbers, Mr. Analytical Eric Helms goes, listen, I can't back my man Pana, but my heart does. My heart will go on, and it will go on backing Pana. And I tell you what, my heart sang, even though my analytical mind went, oh, that was unexpected. And I was like, well, I'm good with that, because that was awesome to see. I'm happy to see it. And you went to go celebrate with your dad, who was there in person. You gave him your gold medal. It doesn't get better than this, folks.
Yeah. This is what sports all about. Yeah.
100%. It is a metaphor for life, and a beautiful life that you're living in, and a great example you're showing. I got one question for you, Pana, before we start to wrap this up. Pana is 65 years old. What does he do on Saturdays?
Squats, bench, deadlift.
I didn't mention.
Hopefully I'm good at that moment to do so. But yeah, honestly, I don't know for how long I'm going to do it. Like we said, I just try to live it to the fullest. And if I'm not powerlifting in 3 years from now, for whatever reason, I think I'll be cool with that. And if not, if I'm able to, at 80, I'll still be out squatting, out growling, all of those youngsters at Planet Fitness.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's the plan. I just love lifting weights. I think it teaches you, like, how we've been doing this for so long. It's because it teaches you that through efforts you gain something. Could be a couple of inches on your biceps. Could be a couple of kilos on your squats, your bench, whatever. Could be somebody you met at the gym because you were lifting weights, like a friend. It could be your girlfriend, whatever. I think lifting weights teaches you something for life, like you said, Eric. And it teaches you that whenever you give heart, whenever you invest yourself in something, at some point you'll get something out of it. And so that's why I think that even at 65, I'll have my SBG belts. I'll be squatting some weights. I'll be benching some weights and having fun in the gym, hopefully.
Hey, at the very least, bench only plus men's physique, because our knees don't work.
Good enough. Good enough for me.
Let's go. I thought you were going to say box squat instead of squat. But I mean, we'll take the whole damn thing,
Box squats was 55. We're done with that now.
The good thing is I'll be able to look at those kids in the eyes and be like, when I was your age, I was IPF 110.
Oh yeah,
and they'll be like, "Who is that guy?"
They Conor McGregor you. I was gonna say, imagine everyone keeps lifting and the 65, like what would be M3? Erica's 60 to. Does it go up per decade? Is it per decade?
Yep, that's M3.
So the M3 is going to be lit in like 30 years from now. In terms of people competing, it's actually going to be arguably the most. No one stops lifting.
I'm telling you, bro. I hope not, because I will lose my ability to be relevant. Because I have a feeling the people who are currently world champions will be better M2s than myself. So right now, I'm doing all right as an M1. Like that steep drop off. I'm doing all right.
You'll be the best M10 we'll ever have.
M10, let's go. You just got to walk out onto the platform.
Vampire, baby.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's what annoys me about these like 93-year-old lifters. I see this dude who's like deadlifted 400 pounds. I'm like, shit, there goes my plan. Just like outlast. The plan was to outlast everyone. Everyone gives up on it. I just walk out all rickety and shit and lift it. I'm like, oh no, this guy's actually doing the damn thing.
Hey, as long as I can squat, bench, and deadlift 20 kilos when I'm 130, based upon Pana's prediction of M10, I got this. 60 kilo total at 130.
Yeah.
Hey.
M10, you're a world champ, man.
Yeah.
Oh, tell you what. Let's go.
You feel like, where am I? It's like you're a world champ, and then you're like, good. Where am I? Like you just ask the same question.
You're like, the rest of us has uploaded our consciousness to computers. You're the only one who's still competing in this sport at all.
Yeah.
You're 130 years old. What's wrong with you? We are living on Mars in a space station in a giant AI floating, world-spanning Dyson sphere. So I don't understand why you're still here in Malta. It's not even where Worlds are this year, Eric. What's going on?
Did I win? It's like, yes, you won. Oh man, no, Pana. Let me throw it back to you. This has been another monster episode. It has been an absolute privilege having you on. Is there anything you want to circle back to from what we discussed? We kind of hopped a few different places. Anything that you want to announce to our audience?
No, just thank you for having me. It was really a pleasure. And I was on the speaker side of things, like listening to your podcast with various guests. And so yeah, it's an honor to have done that podcast with you both. And thank you for the time,
Eric.
It's our pleasure. It's a true privilege to have you on. Thank you for making the time. It is, folks. It's like, what is it? 11 p.m. in France right now.
12.
Yeah.
just
See,
getting
look at
started.
that. It's almost tomorrow.
Bro, knowing Pana, I used to have phone calls with. It was like super late. It was like around the. Pana is a freak of nature, bro. He's when Kyriakos says you have to live it, like Pana lives it. Like that's the best way of describing it. So we're gonna make
Chris
sure.
is like, you're living it too much, bro.
Yeah,
Chill out.
He sits you
I
down.
have a quick like Kyriakos Grizzly section. I think you'll enjoy it, and I think the viewers will enjoy it also. So I'm not the most on-time person on earth. Like I'm usually late when I have a meeting, when I have an appointment. I'm usually late. So with Kyriakos, he's like, hey, we'll meet tomorrow at 12. I'm like, yeah, cool. That's fine, man. So it's like an hour, 45 minutes drive ish from where my dad lives in Greece. Nothing crazy, but still some time. And so I live with Anissa, my fiance, and we live a little later than like projected, right? And on my phone it says we're there by 12:20, 12:25. So 25 minutes late. So he calls me and I'm like, yeah, Kyriakos, sorry, we're going to be a little late. We're going to run a little late. His answer, fuck, no, fuck, no. Like he got mad so much that I was like, oh, maybe you tell me and we just cancel it and I go back home, you tell me. And he goes, no, that's okay, you can come, but like no more later than 12:25, no more later. And on the road with my fiance, we're like, oh fuck, like we have to hurry because he was mad. And so after I met him, he told me like, oh, sorry for flipping out earlier, but like I'm so pissed at people being late because I'm always early, like always 20 minutes early, 30 minutes early. So when you announced that you would be 30 minutes late, it was an hour for me. So I was just crazy. And so this time around, when I was meeting with him again, I was like, this time around, I'm not going to be late. Actually, I was supposed to be 10 minutes late, but I did some driving on the highway and was there on time. I was there on time.
Hey, my man Jason Bourned it, and he got there on time without killing anyone, at least that he will admit to, and was not therefore killed by Grizzly. So we're all glad.
That's what I was afraid of.
He pulled a too fast, too furious on everyone. As Vin Diesel said, it's all about family. Kyriakos understands
All
that.
family.
Yeah, it's all family. But you have to live it. We're going to make sure, Pana, we link all your social media in the description. Shout out to Kai for doing so. As Eric stated, and we've said before, a distinct pleasure. We cannot wait to see you compete at the Sheffield 2024 and every single thing that you managed to accomplish, because you're one of the very important voices in this space, helping powerlifting grow and just the greater fitness community. So we want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of The Iron Culture. You go ahead and leave a rating and review. Typically, people will give 5 stars, but it's up to your own discretion what you will give. Again, people give 5 stars. Hey, consider it. We're battling other health and fitness podcasts, such as Sex with Insert the Doctor's Name. We might make the pivot if Pana's doing, a physique competition. We might make Eric the sexual health expert. Is he? Does it matter? Tune in to find out. And we're back, insert date here every single, and we'll catch you in that next episode. Until next time.